The hotel receipt fell out of Mel's gym bag like a confession written on corporate letterhead. 2 nights at the Riverside Inn, room 237, charged to a credit card I'd never seen before. But it wasn't the receipt that made my stomach drop. It was the pair of men's boxers underneath it, navy blue with DR embroidered in gold thread. I'm Marty Quinn, 42 years old, and I fix air conditioners for a living. Not exactly the kind of guy you'd expect to star in a revenge thriller, but life has a way of casting ordinary people in extraordinary situations. My wife Mel always said I was too predictable, too safe. Turns out she was looking for excitement in all the wrong places. Standing in our garage at 7:30 on a Tuesday morning, holding another man's underwear, I felt something shift inside me. Not rage. That would come later. This was something colder, more calculating. The same methodical thinking that helped me diagnose faulty HVAC systems was now turning toward my marriage, and the diagnosis wasn't good. "Dad, you okay?" My daughter Jessie appeared in the doorway, backpack slung over her shoulder, ready for school. At 14, she had her mother's sharp eyes but my stubborn streak. She noticed everything, which meant she'd probably noticed more about Mel's behavior than I'd given her credit for. "Just fine, sweetheart," I said, shoving the evidence back into the bag. "Mom leave for work already?" "Yeah, said she had an early meeting." Jessie's voice carried a note of skepticism that made me wonder what else she'd observed. She's been having a lot of early meetings lately. My 11-year-old son Alex bounded down the stairs, still trying to button his shirt. "Dad, can you help me with my science project tonight? Mom said she'd be working late again." Working late. Early meetings. The puzzle pieces were forming a picture I didn't want to see, but couldn't ignore. I'd been married to Mel for 16 years, and I knew her tells better than anyone. The way she'd started working out obsessively 6 months ago. The new clothes, the expensive perfume, the phone calls she'd taken private. "Sure, buddy. We'll tackle that volcano project together." I ruffled Alex's hair, trying to keep my voice steady. Inside, I was already planning my next move. After dropping the kids at school, I drove to Quinn HVAC, the small business I'd built from nothing over the past decade. My partner Bo Martinez was already there, wrestling with a commercial unit that had seen better days. "You look like someone pissed in your coffee," Bo said without looking up. We'd been friends since high school, and he could read my moods like a thermostat. "Found something interesting in Mel's gym bag this morning." I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo I'd taken of the receipt. Bo whistled low. "Riverside Inn? That's not exactly a business meeting kind of place." He straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag. "You sure about this, man? Navy blue boxers with DR embroidered on them. Unless Mel's started cross-dressing, I'd say I'm sure." "DR," Bo repeated thoughtfully. "Wasn't there some guy at the gym Mel mentioned? Some trainer or something?" The pieces clicked into place. Declan Reyes, the CrossFit instructor at Peak Fitness, where Mel had been spending 3 hours a day, 4 days a week. I'd met him once at a gym social event, 34 years old, built like a comic book character, drove a lifted Jeep Wrangler with vanity plates that read Beast Mode. The kind of guy who took shirtless selfies and called them motivational content. "I need to be smart about this," I said, more to myself than to Bo. "If I'm going to take them down, I need evidence." "Real evidence." Bo raised an eyebrow. "Take them down? Marty, maybe you should just talk to Mel first. Could be a misunderstanding." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Bo, my friend, there's no misunderstanding a pair of another man's underwear in your wife's gym bag. But you're right about one thing. I need to be careful. Mel's smart, and she works in HR. She knows how to cover her tracks." The rest of the day passed in a haze of routine service calls, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about patterns, about evidence, about the best way to expose a liar without becoming one myself. By the time I got home, I had the beginnings of a plan. Mel was in the kitchen, preparing dinner with the kind of aggressive efficiency that meant she was stressed about something. She looked up when I walked in, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Fear? It was gone too quickly to be sure. "How was your day?" she asked, the picture of domestic normalcy. "Same as always. Fixed some air conditioners, made some money." I leaned against the counter, studying her face. "How about you? That early meeting go well?" "Oh, you know how it is. Budget reviews, personnel issues." She turned back to the stove, but I caught the slight tremor in her voice. "I might have to work late tomorrow, too. Big project coming up." "On a Wednesday night?" "That's rough." I kept my tone casual, conversational. "What kind of project?" "Just some training seminars we're rolling out. Nothing exciting." She was chopping vegetables with unnecessary force. "You wouldn't be interested." "Training seminars." I almost laughed at the irony. If only she knew that I was about to get an education in advanced surveillance techniques. That night, after Mel had gone to bed claiming exhaustion from her long day, I sat in my home office and did what any self-respecting HVAC technician would do when faced with a complex problem. I made a systematic plan. Step 1, confirm the affair. I needed photos, receipts, timestamps, evidence that would hold up in court if it came to that. Step 2, document everything. If Mel thought she could gaslight me into believing I was paranoid, she had another thing coming. Step 3, choose my moment. The confrontation would come, but it would be on my terms, when I had all the cards. Step 4, make them pay. Not with violence. I wasn't that kind of man. But there were other ways to destroy someone, ways that would hurt worse and last longer than any physical assault. I opened a new document on my computer and titled it, Operation Find the Idiot. Bo would appreciate the humor in that. Then I started typing, documenting everything I knew, everything I suspected, and everything I planned to do about it. By the time I finished, it was past midnight. Mel was asleep beside me, or pretending to be. As I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation. For the first time in our marriage, I was going to be the one with secrets. The next morning brought new opportunities for investigation. Mel left early for another meeting, kissing me goodbye with lips that had probably been on another man just hours before. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then checked her laptop. She'd been careful, but not careful enough. Her browser history showed regular searches for Riverside Inn, CrossFit competitions, and how to know if your husband suspects cheating. That last one almost made me laugh. Too late for that, sweetheart. I found her backup phone hidden in her jewelry box, a cheap prepaid model I'd never seen before. The text messages were poetry in their stupidity. "Can't wait to see you tonight, gorgeous. Room 237, usual time." D. Last night was incredible. You make me feel alive again. M. Your husband called the gym looking for you. Told him you'd already left. We need to be more careful. D. So Declan knew about me, knew he was helping destroy a family, and didn't care. That made things easier, in a way. I wouldn't have to feel guilty about what I was planning to do to him. I photographed everything, uploaded it to a secure cloud account, and put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. Then I called Bo. "I need you to cover for me this afternoon," I said. "I'm going hunting." Peak Fitness occupied a converted warehouse on the industrial side of town, all exposed brick and motivational posters. I'd been here exactly once before, for that social event where I'd first met Declan Reyes. Now I was back, sitting in my work van across the street, watching my wife's car in the parking lot. She'd told me she was working late. It was 3:15 in the afternoon. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Mel on a rowing machine, her form perfect, her face flushed with exertion. Declan stood behind her, his hands on her shoulders, leaning down to whisper something in her ear. She laughed, a sound I recognized but hadn't heard directed at me in months. I took photos. Lots of photos. My phone buzzed with a text from Bo. "You sure about this, man?" Once you go down this road, there's no coming back. He was right, of course, but I'd already passed the point of no return the moment I found those boxers. This wasn't about saving my marriage anymore. It was about making sure that when it ended, I wouldn't be the one left with nothing. Mel and Declan moved to the free weights section, where he spotted her through a series of squats. His hands lingered on her waist longer than necessary. She didn't pull away. The intimacy between them was obvious to anyone who cared to look, which made me wonder how long this had been going on and who else knew about it. That question was answered 20 minutes later when Mel's best friends, Tara Hoffman and Robin Chen, arrived for what I assumed was their regular workout session. But instead of exercising, they huddled near the smoothie bar, whispering and giggling like teenagers. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language told the story. They were in on the secret. Tara had been Mel's maid of honor at our wedding. Robin was Alex's godmother. These women had been in my home, had eaten at my table, had helped me plan surprise parties for my wife, and they'd been covering for her affair. I made a mental note to add them to my list. At 4:30, the workout ended. I watched Mel and Declan say goodbye with a hug that lasted too long and included what looked like a kiss on the neck. Then Mel headed to her car, while Declan retreated to his office. I followed Mel home, staying well back, and arrived just minutes after she did. She was already in the shower when I walked through the front door, washing off the evidence of her afternoon meeting. "You're home early," she called from upstairs. "Slow day," I called back. "How was work?" "Oh, you know. Same old corporate nonsense." The water shut off. "I'm thinking about going out with the girls tonight. Tara's having some drama with her ex, needs moral support." More lies, delivered with the casual ease of someone who'd had plenty of practice. I wondered how many times she'd used Tara as an excuse, how many girls' nights had actually been hotel room rendezvous. "That's nice of you to be there for her," I said, marveling at my own ability to play along. "What time will you be home?" "Not sure. You know how these things go. Might be late." I knew exactly how these things went. She'd meet Declan somewhere, probably that hotel room, and I'd sit at home like an idiot, taking care of our children while she betrayed everything we'd built together. But not tonight. Tonight, I had other plans. After Mel left, supposedly for Tara's place, I called Beau. "I need a favor. Can you watch the kids for a few hours?" "Marty, what are you planning?" "Nothing illegal. I just want to see where this rabbit hole goes." Beau arrived 30 minutes later with pizza and a concerned expression. "You sure about this? You look like a man about to do something stupid." "I look like a man about to do something necessary," I corrected. "There's a difference." I drove to the Riverside Inn, a mid-range hotel that catered to business travelers and people having affairs. The parking lot was half full, and I spotted Mel's Honda Civic parked next to Declan's ridiculous Jeep. Room 237 was on the second floor, facing the parking lot. The curtains were drawn, but there was a thin strip of light visible between them. I sat in my van, watching that strip of light, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. This was really happening. My wife of 16 years, the mother of my children, was in that room with another man. All the evidence in the world couldn't have prepared me for the reality of that knowledge. I took more photos, the cars, the room number, the timestamp on my phone. Then I did something that surprised even me. I walked into the hotel lobby. The desk clerk was a kid, maybe 22, with the kind of bored expression that suggested he'd seen it all. I approached with the confidence of a man who belonged there. "Excuse me," I said, pulling out my business card. "I'm here to check the HVAC system in room 237. The guest called about temperature issues." The kid barely glanced at the card. "You need to coordinate with maintenance. Mr. Johnson's not here right now." "That's okay." The guest said it was urgent, and I was in the area anyway. Just need to check the thermostat, make sure it's calibrated correctly. I was counting on the universal truth that nobody questions a guy in work clothes carrying a toolbox. The kid shrugged and handed me a key card. Just bring it back when you're done. Room 237 was at the end of the hall. As I approached, I could hear voices through the door, Mel's laugh, Declan's deeper rumble. My hand trembled slightly as I raised it to knock. "Maintenance," I called out. "Got a report about temperature issues in this room." The voices stopped abruptly. I heard whispered conversation, then footsteps. The door opened just wide enough for Declan to peer out, wearing nothing but a hotel towel. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, and finally, something that might have been fear. "Mr. Quinn," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "This is unexpected." "I'll bet it is." I pushed past him into the room, where Mel sat on the bed wrapped in a sheet, her face white with shock. "Hello, honey. How's that girls' night with Tara going?" The room reeked of deceit and shattered trust. Their clothes were scattered across the floor like evidence at a crime scene. Mel's wedding ring sat on the nightstand, abandoned along with her promises. "Marty, I can explain," Mel started, but I held up a hand to stop her. "No need to explain. I think the situation is pretty clear." I looked around the room, memorizing details. "Nice place. A little cliché, but I suppose it serves your purposes." Declan had recovered some of his composure. "Look, man, I know this looks bad." "It looks exactly like what it is," I said calmly. "My wife with her personal trainer in a cheap hotel room. Though I have to say, Declan, your taste in underwear is interesting. Navy blue with gold embroidery? A little too fancy for a gym rat, don't you think?" His face flushed red. "You went through my stuff." "I went through my wife's stuff. Your underwear just happened to be in her gym bag." I turned to Mel, who was still sitting frozen on the bed. "How long?" "Marty, please." "How long?" "6 months," she whispered. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of fake meetings and girls' nights and working late. 6 months of coming home to me and the kids after being with him. 6 months of betrayal so complete it took my breath away. "Well," I said finally, "I guess that explains why you've been so enthusiastic about fitness lately." I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Declan lunged toward me, but I was already backing toward the door. "I wouldn't," I said quietly. "Unless you want to explain to the police why you assaulted a man in a hotel room where you were with his wife." He stopped, his hands clenched into fists. Mel was crying now, great heaving sobs that might have moved me if I hadn't spent the last 2 days planning for this moment. "You have 24 hours, I told them both. 24 hours to figure out how you want to handle this, because tomorrow everyone's going to know." I walked out of that hotel room and didn't look back. In the parking lot, I sat in my van for a long moment, processing what had just happened. The confrontation had gone better than I'd hoped. They were rattled, scared, and probably making mistakes even as I sat there. My phone buzzed with a call from Mel, then another, then a text. "Please don't do anything crazy. We need to talk." I turned off the phone. We were way past talking. The genius of modern technology is that it makes revenge so much easier than it used to be. Back in the day, if you wanted to humiliate someone, you had to work at it, hire a private investigator, print flyers, make phone calls. Now, all you need is access to their digital life and a little creativity. Mel had always been careless with passwords. She used the same one for everything. Jesse Alex, 2010. The year our kids were born. It got me into her email, her social media accounts, and most importantly, her shared calendar system that synced with her work computer, her phone, and the family tablet the kids used for homework. I spent the morning after the hotel confrontation setting up my masterpiece. First, I created a series of recurring calendar events. Anniversary, first hotel room with Declan, set to repeat monthly, lunch break quickie, with D- every Tuesday and Thursday at noon, lying to Marty about working late. Every Wednesday, evening, girls' night, actually cheating, every Friday. But the crown jewel was a special event scheduled for that very afternoon. Happy 6-month anniversary of my affair with Declan Reyes, complete with heart emojis and set to send notifications to everyone in her contacts list. I made sure all the events were public, shareable, and synced to every device and platform she used. Then I sat back and waited for the fireworks. The first explosion came at 11:30 a.m. My phone rang. Mel's number, but she was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "Marty, what did you do?" My whole office got notifications about your affair, I said helpfully. Yeah, I figured it was time to make it official. You seemed so happy about it yesterday. You have to fix this. People are staring at me. My boss wants to see me. I don't have to do anything, Mel. You created this situation. I'm just making sure everyone knows about your accomplishments. She hung up, but the calls kept coming. Tara first. Marty, what the hell is going on? My phone is blowing up with notifications about Mel and some trainer. Ask Mel, I said. I'm sure she'll explain everything. Then Robin. This has to be some kind of mistake. Mel would never. Check her social media, I suggested. I think you'll find it's all very real. By noon, the story was spreading through our neighborhood like wildfire. The school pickup moms had a group chat that was apparently going nuclear. Mel's co-workers were sharing screenshots. Even people I hadn't talked to in years were calling to ask if the calendar notifications were some kind of joke. They weren't joking. Bo showed up at my shop around 2 o'clock, shaking his head in what might have been admiration or horror. Jesus, Marty, you really went scorched earth on this. I'm just getting started. I showed him my phone, which was buzzing with notifications from Mel's social media accounts. The calendar events had automatically posted to her Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn profiles. Her professional reputation was being incinerated in real time. Her boss called me, Bo said. Apparently, the HR department is having an emergency meeting about inappropriate personal conduct and potential policy violations. She might get fired. Good. Maybe she should have thought about that before she decided to be with her trainer. And what about Declan? I smiled. Oh, I have special plans for Declan. Peak Fitness had its own Facebook page, and like most businesses, they monitored it constantly for customer feedback. I'd created a fake profile, concerned community member, and posted a detailed review about the unprofessional conduct I'd witnessed between staff and clients. Saw a trainer here getting very personal with a married client, I wrote. Very inappropriate behavior. Makes me question what kind of establishment this is. Thought other families should know before bringing their wives here. I included just enough detail to make it clear I was talking about Declan, without naming him directly. Within hours, the post had dozens of comments from other gym members sharing their own observations and suspicions. The gym's owner, a guy named Pete Kowalski, called me that afternoon. I'd done work on his home HVAC system the previous year, so he had my number. Marty, I heard about your situation. I'm real sorry, man. But I need to ask, did you post that review on our Facebook page? I might have shared some observations about the quality of service at your establishment. Pete sighed. Look, I get it. If it was my wife, I'd want to burn the place down. But I got a business to run here. Declan's one of my most popular trainers. Was, I corrected. I'm guessing his popularity is about to take a hit. Yeah, about that. I'm going to have to let him go. Can't have this kind of drama attached to the gym, but I need you to take down that post. I'll consider it, I said, after you fire him. By evening, the social media carnage was complete. Mel's affair was the talk of our entire social circle. Her professional reputation was in ruins, and Declan was unemployed. But I wasn't done yet. The kids came home from school with questions. Jesse had overheard other parents talking at pickup. Alex had seen notifications on the family tablet before I could disable them. Dad, Jesse said carefully, is Mom really with someone else? I sat them both down in the living room, trying to figure out how to explain adult stupidity to children who deserved better than this mess. Your mom made some bad choices, I said finally. She's been seeing someone she shouldn't be seeing. That's why there's all this drama right now. Is she going to live somewhere else? Alex asked, his voice small. I don't know yet, buddy. But whatever happens, you guys didn't do anything wrong and both your parents love you very much. Jessie, who was older and understood more, looked angry. She lied to us. All those times she said she was working or with Tara, she was really with him. Yeah, she did lie, and that's not okay. What are you going to do? I looked at my daughter, so serious and grown up at 14, and realized she deserved honesty. I'm going to make sure she faces consequences for what she did. But I'm going to do it the right way, legally and fairly. Good, Jessie said fiercely. She deserves whatever happens to her. That night, Mel came home. I was waiting in the living room with a beer and a folder full of printed screenshots from the day's social media disaster. She looked terrible, red-eyed, disheveled, defeated. Her professional wardrobe was wrinkled, her makeup smeared. The confident woman who'd kissed me goodbye that morning was gone, replaced by someone who looked like she'd been hit by a truck. Marty, we need to talk. No, I said calmly. We needed to talk 6 months ago, before you started seeing Declan. Now we need to figure this out. Negotiate what? I opened the folder and spread the screenshots across the coffee table. Your surrender. She stared at the images, her own social media posts, the gym reviews, the calendar notifications that had destroyed her day. You ruined my career, she whispered. You ruined our marriage. I'd say we're even, but we're not. Not yet. What do you want? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to realize that betraying someone who trusted you comes with a price. And I want you to know that this is just the beginning. She looked up at me with something that might have been fear. What does that mean? It means tomorrow is going to be even worse for you than today was. And the day after that will be worse still. Because I'm not done, Mel. Not even close. I stood up, gathered the screenshots, and headed for the stairs. Where are you going? She called after me. To bed, in the guest room. I suggest you call Declan and see if he's got a couch you can sleep on. Oh wait, I forgot. He got fired today because of your affair. Guess he might not be feeling very hospitable. I left her sitting in the living room, surrounded by the wreckage of her own making, and went upstairs to plan tomorrow's revenge. Declan Reyes lived in a ground-floor apartment in one of those generic complexes that catered to single guys with more muscle than money. His Jeep sat in the parking lot like a monument to overcompensation, all lifted suspension and aggressive tires that had probably never seen actual off-road use. I'd been watching his place since 6 a.m., drinking coffee from a thermos and planning my next move. The calendar revenge had been satisfying, but it was just the opening act. Declan had helped destroy my family, and he needed to understand that actions have consequences. At 7:30, he emerged from his apartment wearing gym shorts and a tank top that showed off his ridiculous physique. He looked like he hadn't slept much, which was understandable, given that he'd lost his job and probably spent the night fielding angry calls from Mel. He climbed into his Jeep and drove toward the gym, his former gym, where he was no longer welcome. I followed at a distance, curious to see what a disgraced personal trainer did with his morning. Peak Fitness was still closed, but Declan parked in the lot anyway and sat there for 20 minutes, probably trying to work up the courage to face Pete Kowalski and collect his final paycheck. When he finally went inside, I made my move. The Jeep's doors were unlocked. Apparently, Declan had never learned that being built like a comic book character doesn't make you immune to consequences. I popped the hood and got to work. I didn't damage anything permanently. I'm not a vandal, just a guy with specialized knowledge and a creative streak. I loosened a few hose clamps, disconnected some electrical connections, and introduced a small amount of glitter into the air intake system. When Declan turned on his air conditioning, he was going to get a very colorful surprise. I also left a little present in his glove compartment, a printed copy of every text message he'd exchanged with my wife, along with a note that read, "Thought you might want these for your scrapbook. M. Quinn." By the time Declan came back out, looking even more dejected than before, I was sitting in my van across the street, waiting for the show to begin. He climbed into the Jeep, started the engine, and immediately turned on the air conditioning. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the vents began spewing clouds of pink and gold glitter throughout the interior of his precious vehicle. I couldn't hear him from across the street, but his body language told the story. He was cursing, flailing, trying to turn off the air conditioning while glitter coated everything. His hair, his clothes, the leather seats, the dashboard. His black Jeep interior was now a disco ball. He got out of the vehicle, shaking glitter from his hair, and that's when he noticed the engine trouble. The loosened connections I'd made were causing the engine to run rough, and one of the hose clamps had worked free enough to create a small coolant leak. Steam was beginning to rise from under the hood. Declan stood there in the parking lot, covered in glitter, watching his Jeep die, and I felt a satisfaction deeper than anything I'd experienced in months. This was what justice looked like. My phone rang. Beau's number. "Please tell me you didn't do anything stupid," he said without preamble. "Define stupid." "Marty, relax. I didn't hurt him. I just redecorated his ride." "Jesus Christ. Where are you?" Watching Declan try to figure out why his Jeep is shooting glitter and overheating. "You need to get out of there before he figures out it was you. He already knows it was me." That's the point. But Beau was right. I'd made my statement, and there was no point sticking around for the aftermath. I drove back to the shop, feeling lighter than I had in days. The feeling lasted until noon, when Declan showed up. He'd cleaned most of the glitter off himself, but his hair still sparkled in the sunlight, and his white tank top looked like it had been attacked by a craft store. His Jeep was parked outside, hood up, still leaking coolant onto the pavement. "We need to talk," he said, pushing through the front door of Quinn HVAC like he owned the place. Beau looked up from the invoice he was working on, took one look at Declan's glittery appearance, and barely suppressed a laugh. "Nice look," Beau said. "Very festive." "Shut up," Declan snapped, then turned to me. "You think this is funny?" "Hilarious," I said, not looking up from the compressor I was rebuilding. "Though I have to say, pink really brings out your eyes." "You sabotaged my car. I have no idea what you're talking about." I set down my wrench and faced him. "But if someone did mess with your car, maybe you should think about why that might have happened. You're pissed about Mel. I get it. But this has gone far enough." "Has it?" I stepped closer, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I let some of my anger show. "You helped my wife lie to me for 6 months. You knew she was married, knew she had kids, and you didn't give a shit. You thought you could just take whatever you wanted without consequences. It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that." I was in his face now, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. "You thought you were dealing with some pathetic suburban dad who'd just roll over and take it. But here's the thing, Declan. I'm not rolling over. I'm just getting started." He tried to look tough, puffing out his chest and clenching his fists, but the glitter in his hair kind of ruined the intimidation factor. "You want to threaten me?" he said. "I don't need to threaten you. I'm just going to keep making your life miserable until you disappear from mine. And if I don't?" I smiled. "Then tomorrow will be worse than today. And the day after that will be worse still. I'm very creative, Declan, and I have a lot of free time now that my marriage is over." He stared at me for a long moment, probably trying to decide if I was bluffing. I wasn't. "This isn't over," he said finally. "You're absolutely right. It's not." After he left, Beau shook his head. "You're playing with fire, man. That guy's got 40 pounds of muscle on you. Muscle doesn't matter if you're smarter than the other guy." And if he decides to get physical? I pulled out my phone and showed Bo the video I'd been recording since Declan walked in. Then I'll have evidence of assault, and he'll have bigger problems than glitter in his air conditioning. That evening, I got a call from Pete Kowalski at the gym. Marty, Declan came by today looking like he'd been dunked in a craft store. Please tell me you didn't do anything to his car. Can't help you there, Pete. Look, I already fired the guy. Isn't that enough? Not even close. Pete sighed. What's it going to take to end this? It ends when he leaves town and never comes back. It ends when my wife realizes that her little adventure cost her everything. It ends when everyone who helped them lie to me faces consequences for their actions. And Tara and Robin? They're good people, Marty. They just got caught up in Mel's drama. Good people don't help married women cheat on their husbands. What are you planning? You'll find out soon enough. I hung up and went back to my computer, where I was preparing the next phase of my campaign. Tara and Robin thought they could enable my wife's affair without consequences. They were about to learn otherwise. The beauty of social media is that it creates a permanent record of everything people do. Tara and Robin had been posting photos and comments for months that, when viewed with the right context, clearly showed they knew about Mel's affair. Pictures from girls' nights where Mel was conspicuously absent. Comments about getting what you deserve and living your best life. Check-ins at restaurants and bars that proved they were covering for Mel's lies. I compiled it all into a comprehensive timeline that told the story of their complicity. Then I created a Facebook event, an evening of truth, how Tara Hoffman and Robin Chen helped destroy the Quinn family. I invited everyone in our social circle. The event description was a masterpiece of controlled fury, laying out exactly how these women had enabled and encouraged my wife's affair. I included screenshots, timestamps, and a detailed explanation of how their lies had allowed the betrayal to continue for months. Then I scheduled it to go live the next morning, right before the weekly coffee meetup that Tara hosted for the neighborhood moms. By the time I was done, it was past midnight. Mel still wasn't home, probably staying with one of her enabler friends, trying to figure out how to salvage her reputation. The kids were asleep, safe in their beds, unaware that their father was systematically destroying their mother's entire social network. I felt a moment of doubt. Was I going too far? Was this the kind of man I wanted to be? Then I remembered the hotel room, the lies, the 6 months of betrayal, and the doubt evaporated. Mel and her accomplices had made their choices. Now they could live with the consequences. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and went to bed, already looking forward to tomorrow's fireworks. The coffee shop erupted at exactly 9:17 a.m. I wasn't there to witness it personally, but I had friends who were. The weekly neighborhood moms coffee meetup at Brewster's Cafe was supposed to be a casual social gathering, but it turned into a battlefield when my Facebook event went live. According to Bo's wife, Maria, who'd been invited to join the group months earlier, Tara Hoffman was in the middle of complaining about Marty's inappropriate social media behavior when every phone in the place started buzzing with notifications. An evening of truth. How Tara Hoffman and Robin Chen helped destroy the Quinn family. Maria said you could have heard a pin drop as 25 women simultaneously read through my detailed timeline of their friends' complicity in Mel's affair. The screenshots were damning, text messages, social media posts, and photos that painted a clear picture of deliberate deception. Tara tried to defend herself, claiming she was just being a supportive friend, but the evidence was overwhelming. Robin wasn't even there. She'd apparently seen the Facebook event early and decided to hide at home rather than face the music. By 10 a.m., both women had deactivated their social media accounts, but it was too late. Screenshots were already circulating, and the court of public opinion had rendered its verdict, guilty as charged. My phone rang constantly throughout the morning. Some calls were supportive, friends and neighbors expressing sympathy and outrage on my behalf. Others were critical, people who thought I'd gone too far, that I was being vindictive and cruel. I didn't care about the critics. They hadn't been betrayed by the people they trusted most. The call that mattered came at 11:30 a.m. It was from Jennifer Walsh, Mel's boss at Morrison Industries. "Mr. Quinn, I need to speak with you about your wife's employment situation." "What about it?" "I'm sure you're aware that the calendar notifications from yesterday created a significant disruption in our workplace. We've had to address concerns from multiple employees about inappropriate personal conduct." "I'm sure you have. We're conducting an internal investigation into potential policy violations. Your wife's personal relationship with someone outside the company wouldn't normally be our concern, but when it affects workplace productivity and professional conduct, you're firing her. We're placing her on administrative leave pending the outcome of our investigation. Given the public nature of this situation and the impact on our company's reputation, I think we both know where this is heading." Mel was going to lose her job. Her career in HR, built over 15 years of hard work, was over. Part of me felt a flicker of sympathy. She'd worked hard to get where she was, and now it was all crashing down. But then I remembered the hotel room, the lies, the 6 months of betrayal, and the sympathy died. "I appreciate you calling to let me know," I said. "Mr. Quinn, I have to ask, are you planning any further revelations? Our legal department is concerned about potential harassment issues." "I'm not harassing anyone. I'm just making sure the truth comes out." "The truth has come out. Maybe it's time to consider the impact on your children." That gave me pause. Jesse and Alex were going to have to deal with the fallout from this for years. Their mother's affair would be neighborhood gossip for months, maybe longer. Was my need for revenge worth putting them through that? But then I thought about all the times Mel had lied to them, all the working late excuses and fake girls' nights that had taught them that deception was acceptable. If I let this slide, what message would that send? "My children deserve to know that actions have consequences," I said finally, "that when someone betrays your trust, there's a price to pay." Jennifer sighed. "I hope you know what you're doing." So did I. That afternoon, I got an unexpected visitor. Mel's mother, Patricia Bishop, showed up at my shop looking like she'd aged 10 years in the past week. Patricia had never liked me much. She thought Mel had married beneath her station, but she looked genuinely distressed. "Martin, we need to talk." I'd never been Martin to her before. Usually, I was Mel's husband or just him when she was feeling particularly dismissive. "What can I do for you, Patricia?" "You can stop this madness before you destroy my daughter completely." "I didn't destroy your daughter. She did that herself." Patricia sat down heavily in the chair beside my desk. She made a mistake. A terrible mistake, but still just a mistake. Does that really justify ruining her entire life? A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. A mistake is double booking dinner plans. What Mel did was a deliberate betrayal that went on for months. She's lost her job, her friends, her reputation. Isn't that enough? I studied Mel's mother, seeing something I'd never noticed before: genuine fear. She wasn't just worried about Mel's reputation, she was terrified of what else I might reveal. "What aren't you telling me, Patricia?" She looked away, suddenly very interested in the calendar on my wall. "I don't know what you mean." "You know something that makes you think I'm not done yet." I think you should consider forgiveness, for the children's sake. The children deserve better than a mother who lies and cheats. They deserve better than a family built on deception. Everyone makes mistakes, Martin. Even you. What do you know? She stood up, suddenly eager to leave. "I just think you should be careful about throwing stones when you live in a glass house." After she left, I sat there trying to figure out what she'd meant. What did Patricia Bishop know about me that she thought would matter? What secrets did she think I was hiding? I couldn't come up with anything. My life was an open book: work, family, the occasional beer with Beau. I'd never cheated, never lied about anything significant, Never done anything that would give Mel ammunition for a counterattack. But Patricia's words nagged at me. She'd seemed so confident, so sure that I was vulnerable somehow. That evening I found out what she meant. I was at home helping Alex with his science project when Mel finally showed up. She looked terrible, exhausted, defeated, broken. But there was something else in her expression, something that looked almost like triumph. "We need to talk," she said, her voice clipped, like she'd been rehearsing the line all day, saving it until she couldn't hold it in anymore. "I'm busy with Alex right now," I replied, forcing my tone to stay calm. My son sat at the kitchen table, tongue pressed to the corner of his mouth in concentration, carefully leveling off a spoonful of baking soda before dumping it into the paper volcano we'd been building for his science project. His small face lit up at every fizz and bubble, oblivious to the storm brewing just feet away. "This can't wait," Mel pressed, the tension in her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I looked down at Alex, who glanced up at me with those wide, trusting eyes that still believed I could fix anything. "Go wash up for dinner, buddy," I said gently. "We'll finish this after we eat, okay?" He hesitated, sensing something in the air, then nodded. "Okay, Dad." He set the spoon down and padded toward the stairs. His footsteps were light, but the silence that followed once he was gone felt heavy, suffocating. Mel didn't waste a second. As soon as Alex was out of earshot, she pulled out her phone with a dramatic flourish, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "I had an interesting conversation with my mother today," she said, eyes narrowed. "She told me about your visit, about how self-righteous you were. How you said I was the only one who'd made mistakes." "You are," I said flatly. No hesitation. "Am I?" Her lips curved into something between a smirk and a sneer. She tapped her screen and held it out toward me. A photo, a grainy shot of me standing outside a downtown bar, talking to a woman I didn't immediately recognize. My chest tightened. "This was taken 3 months ago," she continued. "You told me you were working late that night." I stared at the image, mind scrambling, trying to drag the memory out of the fog. 3 months ago. I traced the timeline back. That had been Murphy's Tavern, I remembered now. I'd been with Bo and a couple of the HVAC guys, swapping horror stories about clients who wanted industrial work for residential budgets. Normal stuff, forgettable at the time, but now it had been twisted into evidence. "That's Linda Morrison," I said finally, my voice steady. "From Morrison Supply." She was telling us about a new line of commercial units they're carrying. There were 6 other people standing right there. "But you lied about where you were," Mel cut in, her voice rising. "You said you were working late." "I was networking with suppliers." "That's part of work," I shot back. Her laugh was sharp and humorless. "Networking? You were drinking with another woman and lying to me about it." I almost laughed too, but not because it was funny. More because the absurdity was too much to hold in. "Mel, that's not even close to the same thing as a 6-month affair." "Isn't it?" she said, eyes flashing. "You lied. You deceived me. You were with another woman when you said you'd be somewhere else." I leaned forward, planting my hands on the table between us. "Are you seriously trying to compare a work-related conversation to you being with your trainer?" She didn't flinch. "I'm saying you're not as innocent as you pretend to be." I shook my head slowly. She was grasping at straws, desperate to turn the spotlight off herself, to twist her betrayal into some kind of false equivalence. But it wasn't going to work. One blurry photo of me outside a bar wasn't going to erase hotel receipts, hidden texts, and 6 months of secrets. "Nice try," I said coldly. "But even if I had been lying, which I wasn't, it doesn't justify what you did." Her jaw tightened. "Maybe not. But it proves you're not the perfect husband you think you are." "I never claimed to be perfect," I replied, my voice like stone. "I just claimed to be faithful." That landed. She stared at me for a long, silent moment, her phone still in her hand but her bravado slipping. Finally, she exhaled, shoved the phone back into her pocket, and crossed her arms. "This has to stop, Marty," she said, lower now, more controlled. "The social media posts. The calendar thing. Whatever you did to Declan's car. It has to stop." "Or what?" I asked, leaning back, daring her. "Or I'll make sure everyone knows you're not the saint you pretend to be." I chuckled, the sound cold and humorless. "Go ahead. Tell everyone I had a conversation with a supplier at a bar. I'm sure they'll be shocked." But even as I said it, something gnawed at me. Patricia's warning echoed in the back of my mind. Mel was dangerous when cornered. Desperate people didn't need real ammunition. They made their own. They bent truth until it broke, and Mel was desperate now. I needed to end this, fast, before she spiraled further, before she did something reckless, something irreversible. "You're right about one thing," I said finally, voice calm, almost measured. "This does need to stop. But it's going to stop on my terms, not yours." Her eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" I smiled, but there was no warmth in it, no humor. Just steel. "It means tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day." The final act began at 2:17 a.m., when my security system pinged me awake with a sharp buzz, alerting me to motion in the backyard. I'd installed cameras around the house 3 days earlier, partly for protection and partly because I suspected this wasn't over. Mel was desperate. Declan was angry, and desperate, angry people make predictable choices. The motion detector showed 2 figures near my garage, Declan and another man I didn't recognize, probably one of his gym buddies looking to earn some easy money. They were trying to force the side door, probably planning to vandalize my tools, or maybe plant something they could use to frame me later. I grabbed my phone and called 911, then settled in to watch the show. The garage was equipped with its own surprises. I'd rigged the lighting system to a motion sensor that would flood the space with blinding LED light the moment anyone stepped inside. I'd also connected the building's old steam heating system to a manual control that would fill the space with harmless but dramatic clouds of vapor. Declan and his friend got the door open and stepped inside, triggering both systems simultaneously. The garage lit up like a football stadium while steam poured from hidden vents, creating a scene that looked like something from a horror movie. I heard shouting, cursing, and the sound of someone stumbling into my workbench. Then the real surprise kicked in. The motion sensor triggered an old air horn I'd connected to the electrical system, blaring a sound so loud it could shake the walls. By the time the police arrived 6 minutes later, Declan and his accomplice were standing in my driveway, soaked in condensation, squinting against the lights, and looking like the world's most incompetent burglars. "Officers," I said, greeting the 2 cops at my front door. "Thanks for responding so quickly. I've got the whole thing on video if you need it." The lead officer, a veteran named Rodriguez, looked at the scene and shook his head. "Mr. Quinn, these gentlemen claim they were just trying to return some property you stole from Mr. Reyes here." "Property I stole?" I looked at Declan, who was still dripping with condensation. "What property would that be?" "My phone," Declan said. "You took it from my car when you sabotaged it. I never touched your phone. But I'd be happy to let the officers search my house if that would help." Officer Rodriguez looked skeptical. "Mr. Reyes, do you have any evidence that Mr. Quinn took your phone? He's been harassing me for days." The glitter, the social media posts, all of it. "The social media posts were about my wife's affair," I said calmly, "which is a matter of public record at this point. As for your car, I have no idea what you're talking about." Rodriguez turned to Declan's friend, a skinny guy with nervous eyes. "And you are?" "Tommy Valdez." Declan said. "Said what?" Tommy looked at Declan, then at the officers, then at the steam still pouring from my garage. "Maybe we should just go, man." "Mr. Reyes," Rodriguez said, "breaking and entering is a serious crime. Are you sure you want to pursue this complaint about a missing phone? Declan looked at the officers, at me, at the ridiculous scene in my driveway, and finally seemed to realize how stupid this whole thing was. No, he said quietly. No complaint. Then I suggest you leave Mr. Quinn's property and don't come back, both of you. After the police left, I reviewed the security footage on my computer. The whole incident was captured in high definition. 2 grown men breaking into my garage, getting surprised by lights and steam, and stumbling around like characters in a slapstick comedy. I uploaded the video to YouTube with the title, Local CrossFit Instructor Attempts Burglary, Gets Surprised by HVAC Guy. Within hours, it had thousands of views and hundreds of comments, most of them mocking Declan's incompetence. But the real surprise came the next morning. I was having coffee and reading the comments on my video when Mel's mother called. Martin, I need to see you. Right now. I'm kind of busy, Patricia. It's about Mel and Declan. And something you need to know before this goes any further. There was something in her voice, fear, guilt, desperation, that made me pay attention. What about them? Not over the phone. Meet me at Brewster's Cafe in 20 minutes. I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. What could Patricia possibly know that would matter at this point? 20 minutes later, I found her sitting in a corner booth, looking like she hadn't slept in days. She had a manila envelope in front of her, and her hands were shaking. Patricia, what's going on? I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you months ago. She slid the envelope across the table. Open it. Inside were photographs, surveillance photos, taken with a telephoto lens. They showed Mel and Declan together, but not at the gym or the hotel. These were taken outside Patricia's house. I don't understand, I said. Declan is my neighbor, Patricia said quietly. He lives in the apartment complex behind my subdivision. Mel didn't meet him at the gym. She met him at my house, at a barbecue I threw last summer. I stared at the photos, trying to process what she was telling me. You introduced them? I didn't mean for this to happen. He seemed like a nice young man, very polite, very fit. Mel was complaining about feeling old, feeling invisible. I thought maybe having a young man pay attention to her would boost her confidence. You encourage this? Patricia's eyes filled with tears. I thought it would just be flirting. Harmless attention. I never imagined it would go this far. The pieces were falling into place. Mel's sudden interest in fitness, her mysterious knowledge of Declan's schedule, the confidence with which she'd carried on the affair. You helped them, I said. I let them meet at my house sometimes, when the hotel got too risky, when they needed somewhere safe. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I told myself I was just helping my daughter be happy. You helped her destroy our marriage. I know, and I'm sorry. But Martin, you have to understand. Mel was miserable. She felt trapped, invisible, like her life was over. When Declan started paying attention to her, she came alive again. So you decided our marriage was disposable. I thought maybe if she got it out of her system, she'd come back to you. That it would save your marriage, not destroy it. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You thought an affair would save our marriage? I thought it would make her appreciate what she had. Instead, it made her realize she wanted something else. Patricia nodded miserably. I was wrong. About everything. And now Mel's lost her job, her friends, her reputation. Declan's unemployed and facing criminal charges. And you hate all of us. I don't hate you, Patricia. I hate what you did. Is there any way to fix this? Any way to make it right? I looked at the photos again. Evidence of a betrayal that went deeper than I'd imagined. It wasn't just my wife who'd deceived me. It was her entire family. No, I said finally. There's no fixing this. What are you going to do? What I should have done from the beginning. I'm going to end this. That afternoon, I called a meeting. Not a secret confrontation or a public humiliation, a formal legal meeting with witnesses and documentation. I rented a conference room at the downtown Marriott and invited everyone who mattered: Mel, Declan, Patricia, Tara, Robin, and my lawyer, Jim Crawford. I also invited Bo and Maria as witnesses. The email was simple. Final resolution meeting. Saturday, 2 p.m., Marriott Downtown Conference Room B. Attendance mandatory for all parties. They all came. They had to. By this point, everyone involved knew I had enough evidence to destroy what was left of their reputations if they didn't cooperate. Mel arrived first, looking nervous but defiant. Declan came next, still sporting traces of glitter in his hair from the previous week's automotive adventure. Patricia looked like she was attending a funeral. Tara and Robin sat as far from everyone else as possible. I stood at the head of the conference table, a folder full of evidence in front of me, and looked at the assembled group of people who had betrayed my trust. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "I know this has been a difficult week for everyone, so I thought it was time to bring things to a conclusion." "Marty," Mel started, but I held up a hand. "I'm going to talk first. You'll all get your turn." I opened the folder and spread out the evidence: photos, screenshots, hotel receipts, text messages, and Patricia's surveillance photos. 6 months ago, my mother-in-law introduced my wife to her neighbor, a personal trainer named Declan Reyes. What started as innocent flirtation became an affair that lasted half a year. During that time, my wife lied to me, to our children, and to everyone in our social circle. She was enabled and encouraged by her mother, and her lies were covered up by her closest friends. I looked around the table at their faces: guilt, shame, anger, and fear. The affair cost Declan his job and his reputation. It cost Mel her career and her social standing. It cost Tara and Robin their credibility in our community. And it cost me my marriage and my trust in the people I thought I could rely on. "We get it," Declan said. "You won. We're all miserable. What more do you want? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to know that betraying someone's trust isn't a game, and I want to make sure this never happens to anyone else." I pulled out a final document, a non-disclosure agreement I'd had Jim Crawford prepare. "Everyone in this room is going to sign this NDA. It prevents any of you from discussing the details of this situation publicly, from harassing me or my children, or from attempting any kind of retaliation. In exchange, I'll stop the social media campaign and remove the YouTube video." "And if we don't sign?" Tara asked. "Then I release everything. Every photo, every text message, every piece of evidence I've collected. I'll make sure this story follows all of you for the rest of your lives." One by one, they signed the agreement. Mel was last, her hand shaking as she wrote her name. "There's one more thing," I said after the documents were signed. "Declan, you're going to leave town. I don't care where you go, but you're not staying here. You can't make me. I can make your life so miserable that leaving becomes your best option. Your choice." He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine. I was thinking about moving to California anyway." "Good. You have 2 weeks." I gathered up the documents and stood to leave, then paused at the door. "One final thing. If any of you ever come near my family again, if you ever try to contact my children or interfere in their lives, the NDA becomes void and I release everything. Are we clear?" They all nodded. "Good. Then we're done here." I walked out of that conference room and didn't look back. In the parking lot, Bo was waiting by my truck. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Tired," I said, "but satisfied." "Think it's really over?" "It's over. They know I'm serious, and they know the consequences if they try anything else." "And Mel? What happens now?" I looked back at the hotel, where my wife was probably still sitting in that conference room, processing the end of her old life. Now she gets to figure out what comes next. Without me. 3 weeks later, Declan left town in his glitter-filled Jeep, heading west toward a new life and hopefully some hard-earned wisdom. Tara and Robin moved to different neighborhoods, unable to face the daily reminder of their role in the destruction of our family. Patricia sold her house and moved to Florida to live with her sister. Mel found a job in the next county over, working for a small company that didn't know about her history. We're divorced now, with joint custody of the kids. She sees them every other weekend and tries to pretend that everything is normal. It's not normal, of course. The kids know what happened, know that their mother made choices that destroyed our family. But they're resilient, and they're learning that actions have consequences, that trust once broken is hard to rebuild. As for me, I'm doing fine, business is good, the kids are adjusting, and I sleep well at night knowing that I stood up for myself and my family when it mattered most. Some people think I went too far, that my revenge was excessive and cruel. But I disagree. I think I did exactly what needed to be done. I exposed the truth, held people accountable for their actions, and made sure that betraying someone's trust comes with a real price. And if that makes me the villain in someone else's story, I can live with that. Because at the end of the day, I'm the one who gets to go home to my children, look them in the eye, and know that their father is a man who fights for what's right, even when it's hard. That's worth more than any marriage built on lies could ever be.